thanks, Brian. Hi, everybody. Just wanted to kind of got a little headshot up there just as an intro. Again, like Brian said, graduated Art Institute back in the early 90s. Uh, Been working freelance pretty much ever since, right out of school. Got a full-time job at a studio. Did a lot of production stuff in a studio, a lot of catalog work, different things. Learned a lot more in the year that I was there than I did in the couple of years I was in art school. Definitely hands-on is a really big learning experience when you're dealing with commercial photography. But after about a year or so in the studio, I just really realized that that just wasn't why I got into photography. Whole purpose for me was to kind of see the country, to be outside, to do exciting stuff, and that's what I wanted to photograph. And I realized that working in the studio just wasn't doing it for me. So I quit after about a year in the studio, went freelance, and kind of took a little bit different road than a lot of commercial photographers. A lot of photographers, have studios, have their own set clients that are kind of client direct, and they dabble in a couple things here and there. I do that a little bit. I've never really had a studio. I freelance for other studios and do some magazine stuff. I do some location scouting that's usually for my own shoots. I don't like to hire that out as much because I enjoy being out doing the stuff and usually helps solve a lot of issues for the shoot where I can go out and see the locations and myself to make sure that there's not going to be issues when it comes time to shoot for shoot day. I do some stock photography, do a lot of location work, a little bit of studio work, just mix it up through the whole realm. I do some work with production companies that come up here to shoot movies, do work through other production companies. So I really mix it up. I'll go ahead and click on my portfolio here just so you can kind of see some of the images I've been doing over the years. And as you'll see going through here, I didn't put any of these in any exact order. It's just a real kind of mosh of images that I've done over the years. Some for advertising shoots, some for stock, some for promotional use for myself to go out, to send to new clients. Do a lot of stuff with production companies, doing stuff in the motorsports industry, and that's kind of been my niche for a while. So I do a lot of action photography, usually out on location. And gosh, I think I added it up a while back now. I've done about 2,100 days of actual advertising shoots out on location, and maybe 100 or so of those have been in a studio, but everything else has been outside. So when it comes to being out, working with the crew, putting a shoot together, scouting locations, pulling permits, working with producers, all that stuff, I've got a pretty huge background in that type of field. So I can just kind of click through here, kind of give you a scope of the places I've been around, the different types of stuff I shoot. This particular shot was just a stock shot, pretty close to my house here actually. Just like I'm sure most of you out there, whenever I go somewhere, I've always got a camera with me because you never know when a great shot's going to come up. So I always
David,
try to hit away. Yes.
let me ask you a question. A question just came through, and I thought it was a good one to ask while you're going through the portfolio.
Uh-huh.
So a
Yeah.
lot of this is commercial work, but um, how would you define the difference between your commercial work and, say, the work that you do for more of a fine art perspective?
Well, from a business standpoint, it's huge in the fact that when you're doing a commercial job, everything is so produced. It's weeks, sometimes months leading up to the shot to do just one particular shot, whereas my own fine art stuff, very rarely is it set up to where a lot of times it'll just be kind of an inspiration. I'll just see something, an idea will pop in my head, and I'll shoot it and kind of create it that way. Whereas with a commercial job, a lot of times you meet with a client, they tell you what the job is. Well, first you have to bid for it. Then if you get the job, there's a whole production that goes behind it. Location scouting for the shot, hiring a crew, digital assistants, photo assistants, a producer, getting the talent, getting the product. It's a it's much more intensive than just the shoot day. I mean, you figure every day that you're shooting, you're probably putting in 4, 5, 6 days of pre-production leading up to that day. So a lot of it is more business oriented and production oriented, whereas my fine art and my stock stuff is more inspirational, kind of more of a spur of the moment. Whereas, and some of the stock stuff that I do has a little bit of a production value also. I just kind of recently got more into stock. So I know that a lot of stock photographers, it can be a big production. I mean, I've got friends that, get a whole group of models together, fly to Hawaii for a week and do a whole huge lifestyle shoot that's, a big budget and very well produced. That's not my main thing. My thing is more the commercial and the editorial side. And so when I do the stock images for me, it's much more kind of inspirational. Just see something, get the idea, maybe spend a day or two setting it up, and then going out and shooting it, and not really having a budget for it. So again, as I
Topic
kind of
of
flick through here, yeah.
well,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah. While we're on the topic of actually, Fern just asked the same question, but my good friends Ron and Chris are on the webinar here, and Ron asked a question that he'd like you to define in terms of what you consider to be stock photography, what you're looking out for, what you think is good stock photography. And Fern asked the same question.
Okay. Yeah, again, since that hasn't been something I've done a lot of over the years, I've just kind of more recently got into it. For me, a lot of times it's, I'll just see something and, I'll want to shoot something. Maybe it's for my portfolio. I feel it could be a good stock image. Um, I haven't done a ton of stock over a long period of time. So, if I click back through here, this is one of my stock images. I guess for me, for stock in general, it needs to fit a wide range of possibilities. It needs to be able to be sold to a lot of different clients. In today's market, with micro stock being so big, you need to be able to sell images all over the board. Whereas it used to be back when images were worth a lot more and there was image rights, and there still is that, but with the micro stock now, with there being so many images that are just out there, it really needs to be able to sell a lot of different times to a lot of different clients. So a shot maybe like this, you have lots of room for type. It can be sold to a hugely variety of clients where it could be banks with preparing for the future, whatever it might be. I really feel when I'm out shooting, I try to look for something that is pretty generic, something that can be sold over a wide range and not specifically geared towards one place. Because even though that will sell, it may not sell near as much, and it just limits who's going to buy the image. Which nowadays, again, with microstock and everything, you're kind of putting yourself in a little bit of a corner with those shots. This is going back here to just some more of the commercial work that I do. Again, through a lot of different production companies, studios. Um, this was a stock shot. I was on a climbing trip down in Arizona. Again, I was there to climb and explore and have fun and be outside, but always have the camera with me. Always like to take pictures, what I like to do, and when a shot kind of presents itself, I try to work the situation a little bit. Put the ropes down and do something a little fun while I'm out taking pictures also. This is just again one of the things I do freelancing for different studios. I'll one day I might be outside, doing location stuff, and the next day I'm at a local studio. Somebody that works full time at the studio might be on vacation. They hire freelance guys. All come in and shoot their product. And so, might be mayonnaise jars one day, TV sets, room sets, models, small product, whatever it might be that they have on their shot list for the day. When you go into kind of big production studios, you'll usually have to crank out 15 to 20 shots throughout the day. So a lot of it is kind of cookie cutter, where you just have to crank this stuff out. It's not about quality as much as the quantity is. This particular shot was, I think I only had 4 or 5 shots to do this day, so I was able to spend a lot more time with this one, light it, and get something a little bit better than if I would have had 20 shots to do that day. Um, Back to some stock images that I've done. Another studio shot again, small product stuff, and another stock shot. And this one was again just kind of spur of the moment, kind of inspirational. It's in my house. My wife, one of my boys, started snowing outside. He was only a few months old, and was up at the window, and I was like, "Wow, that's great, great shot." Ran over, grabbed my camera, shot a bunch of different shots, and ended up being a really great image. Yeah, so if there's any questions from there, how I've got it set up, I basically have a couple different shoots that I've done, trying to cover a little bit of a variety. First one I was going to pull up was going to be a promotional shot that I did, kind of go over that photo, and then I was going to go into a couple different ad shoots and basically just kind of talk everybody through the production and how I shot the stuff and that type of thing. So if there's any questions from here, Brian, I'll go ahead and hop into the next one.
Bunch of questions actually, as
Okay.
I expected. So let's start off with a few. With regards to you mentioned model releases. John was asking, like, what is your process of obtaining model releases when you go shooting people?
If I'm for a commercial job or for stock.
Commercial job, that's kind of inherent. It's built into the whole job. But
Yeah, yeah, and usually the producer handles all that.
personal stock, like let's say you're
Yeah.
walking around and you see, for instance, this shot here. Let's say it was strangers, or you were walking around with that kid. Who was that on the sand there that was walking up into the dune?
Oh, yeah, and that particular shot, yeah. So let me go back to that here. Yeah, there is a great. I would carry around in my camera bag a stock model release that I'm sure everybody has seen it before. But a while back, when I started doing more and more stock, the agency turned me on to an iPhone app called Easy Release, and it's great because it's just an app. I can't remember offhand. I want to think it was maybe $8, $9 on the Apple Store. Downloads to your iPad or your iPhone, and it's great because it's always in your pocket. You can preset all your stuff for model and property releases. And so if you're out shooting something, you see something like this, obviously with a child under 18 there, you need to get a parent information. But having it with your phone, it's great. You can just walk up, say what you're doing, have them sign right on the phone, everything. It emails to your email address, and you've got a digital file, everything ready to go right there. It's a great little app. Again, grab my phone here. It's called Easy Release. Available in the App Store, and it's a great way to go. It's the same, the best model release, and there's a lot of different ones out there. Blend Images seems to have the kind of universal release that most stock agencies want to have. It has all the information there. They have a model release and a property release, and a lot of times, silhouettes, some agencies will take them, some won't. A lot of agencies, absolutely, if there's a person in it, has to have model release, whether you can tell who the person is or not. So it's always better to get one if it's possible. Some agencies aren't as particular about it. But again, if you can get it, great. And having this app on your phone is a great way to do it because it's already a digital file. Most agencies want a digital file, so if you have them sign a paper copy, then you're going to have to scan that or somehow get it in a digital form to send it in anyway. So by having it done this way, it's right there. The copies on your phone, plus it emails to your business email. Then you can forward that on to the stock agency. I found it to be a fantastic way to go.
I agree too. I actually have the same app, and I love
Okay.
it. Yeah, oh yeah. I back when I don't really do that as often. I used it more actually. That same product not only handles model releases, but it handles property releases, which was important for me when I was shooting restaurants or stuff like that. I wanted to make sure that we were covered there. I have more questions, but I want to get you. I want to let you advance, so I'll bring those questions in later on.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and hop over to this shot here. This was a shot that I did as a promo, trying to just kind of diversify my portfolio a little bit since I've done an awful lot of my career in kind of one area. I wanted to get some new images out that just kind of showed a broader range of stuff. So had the idea, was out just shooting one day like us photographers like to do, just out with the camera, and was up at Crown Point here in the gorge. And it was kind of a nice sunset, was just kind of meandering around. And when I got into this general area, I just got this idea for a bike photo, and kind of pre-visualized it in my head what it was that I wanted to do. Got the idea. Gosh, a couple weeks later, I had to fly out for a few jobs. Kind of forgot about it for a while. Got back. Got an email from a talent agency that I use a lot of models through, and the idea popped back up in my head. So I let the agency know, who I was looking for as far as a model goes, that they needed to be able to have, be able to ride a bike good. Gave them a general look that I wanted. Got a hold of this girl. Her name was Megan, and told her what we wanted to do. So we set the shoot up on a nice day and headed on up. This is the final shot. I want to just pull that up here first to show this is kind of the finale of kind of what my vision was for the shot. Then I'll kind of walk you through how I got to that point. First shot that we did, this is the raw shot basically from going back from this. This is the final edited version. This is the raw shot from it. When we first got there, we shot a lot of different setups when the light wasn't quite as good. We did a bunch of action shots of the bike in various locations. Just tried to work the whole area. Whenever I go someplace, even though I have a particular vision in mind for the shot, I try to shoot a lot of other things because sometimes other things pop up that you don't think about, and could end up being a better shot than the whole reason why you went there. So I really try to get there early, work the whole scene, do different setups, do different clothing changes, different lenses, different things, and kind of settle into what's going to be the best shot. If something else would have been working better, I would have completely changed over and done something else. But as it was, this was still for this location and this idea still worked the best. So we did a few different action shots here, and what I how I ended up putting this together was we did everything with the tripod set all in one place, no camera moves or anything, so I could layer all the other things on later. So this is set up with a Lumidyne lighting system with an umbrella to light her. I didn't want to knock the background down too much to make the skies and stuff dark, because then it would knock down the ambient around her that wasn't being lit, and I didn't want to do that. So I knew I was going to strip everything together. So I just lit her the way that she was here with the one light. Then after we did a bunch of other shots, we did a couple various things. We did a few action shots where she's riding the bike also. Then as it got a little bit later, the clouds started looking nice. The lights started going down. She actually ended up just packing up and leaving. I just stayed there with the camera still on the tripod, not moving. Shot some dark exposures for some nice sky as they came in. As the lights came up, wanted to make sure that I got these lights lit. So did another exposure once these lights popped on, and which was getting pretty late at this point. And then after all that was done, I started scrolling back through the camera, and the original shot, the concrete right here was really textured, and it was just such a flat light. It just wasn't showing the texture and stuff on it. So I went ahead and walked around with the Lumidyne. I took the umbrella off, and then I walked around putting the light down low, moving it around different areas, and strobing different sections to get a little bit more of the texture. And as you can see here with the light down really low, cutting across, you can see a lot more texture in that concrete than you can here. And I liked the idea of showing that, and it added a little bit of mood and stuff to it. I walked around. I threw a strobe up on the building up here. I threw a strobe back in here. Just set the camera on a timer, walked around, and just had the flash go off and give me a couple different scenes. Ended up not really liking those as much when I pieced it together, but I really liked this here with the way that the concrete was. So final result, kind of putting those together, was this. Used that later sky, stripped in these lights here so that they were nicely lit. There was another frame or two that I didn't include down in here where the sunset light in the mountains and then the light, see along these poles right here, this warmth light right at sunset. I used those shots also and then stripped that in and piece this together here as the final shot. Came out pretty close to kind of what I envisioned. My original shot when I was thinking of it actually was an action shot. So this was the first one that I had put together. This was the action shot here. Again, you can kind of see it's still got this put in here. Still has the light, still has the warm tone. Um, the tricky part with this was dealing with the camera not panning and being set on a tripod, really hard to get her sharp. The strobe would go off, but then with a little bit longer of a shutter speed, there'd be just a little bit of a halo around her. So she's actually only going like, I mean, she's barely moving there. Because there was a little bit of an issue with her going. It wasn't a flash duration problem, it was just a shutter speed problem of having a little bit too long of a drag. So this was the original idea, was an action shot here for this, but when it was all said and done, I personally, for the promo that I sent out, this was my favorite shot of the two. So this is what I ended up putting out for the promo and then putting on my website also. So if you have any questions on this kind of series, I can take those or I can move on to the next one.
Some questions about. I fielded a few of them, but I'll feel free to handle it yourselves. But there were questions in terms of blending the exposures. This was not tone mapped. You just did some layer masking, correct?
Yes, yeah, correct. I basically went through and didn't do any tone mapping at all. This is just blending different layers together, laying them over, erasing out sections of the sky, taking out the old light pole, putting in the lit lights up on top. Yeah, there was no tone mapping on this one at all.
Question that William just asked, and I think it's good. So he asked, can you give us an idea of the time to set up the shoot, time on the shoot, and then time in your computer or your digital darkroom?
Oh, okay, yeah. Since this was a promo that I was just doing for me, didn't really have a need and didn't really want to really have much of a budget on it. So it's not permitted, which would have to be done for a commercial shoot. I would have had to have the road closed off. I'd have to have traffic, both would be here eastbound and westbound to have it closed off. It would have been a much bigger production and taken a lot longer commercially. Um, but since it was just an idea that I had, leading up to it wasn't much. I knew that I wanted a road biker. Talked with this girl. She sent me a photo of her bike. I knew that bike would work. She had a variety of gear. Being a model, she had a pretty big deal for that. So I didn't need to go out and buy clothes, which sometimes you have to do. That would have added a lot of time to it. So really had the idea, but really just put it together the day before we shot for an hour on the phone. Met her out there, and she actually forgot her helmet. And she's like, "Oh, I never really ride with the helmet," but I had just in a little bit of forethought, thought, you know what, I better throw in my bike helmet and have it in there just in case. And sure enough, I did a few shots without the helmet, and I'm like, man, this just isn't going to work. I don't think, a client, that might be looking this to hire me for a similar shot wouldn't be too excited about the idea that the photographer is shooting somebody without a helmet out on the road. So was able to throw my helmet on, looked pretty good with everything. The actual shoot day, this particular shot probably took up about an hour and a half of time, but we got there an hour or so before, like I'd said, to make sure that we kind of shot the whole realm of things. So I believe sunset was around 9 o'clock. I believe we got up there about 5:30. Went around, shot a few different things, and then just as the light was getting good, went down and started shooting this. So I'd say hour and a half probably for this to shoot her different, pose shots, action shots. And then when she left, I stayed for a while, another half hour or so to shoot the strobe shots in the different skies. And then in the post processing of it, um, to just put this together, kind of the vision that I had for this, maybe 2 hours worth, because I played around a little bit. I had so many different images to look at, so I had the stuff with the strobe up against the rock wall, so I played with that. Didn't like it. Tried a few other things, didn't really like it, and eventually came back to this. So I probably total was, for all the different experimenting things and stuff, probably, gosh, 2 days worth of playing around. But the actual technical side of just taking the 4 or 5 shots that I did, blending it together and getting this was maybe 2 hours worth.
They're
Just
actually I always find it funny how they're a lot of times with the questions the questions come in waves with the same theme, and so I'm going to
uh,
break this up in two basic questions for you to answer, and then you can continue on. Both of them involve money. So the first question is with this model, for example, and in general, when you if and when you deal with models for your own stock images, how do you pay them? When do you pay them? And then the second question is, a lot of people are curious in terms of how do you bill this? How do you spec out pricing for these kinds of jobs?
Now, specking out the prices, like if this was a commercial shoot, or since I just did it for myself, how much money I wanted to put out.
I think actually both. You know, what the money you put out obviously is what you pay for the model and just the overall supplies. But for a commercial shoot, I think a lot of people are curious, not necessarily specific amounts, but if there's a kind of a formula or a price sheet that you put together, that kind of a thing.
Okay. We'll deal with the first one first. With working, since this was for my portfolio here, um, certain models they like to do print for trade. A lot of times, what they call it, where you go out, do the shoot, they allow you to use it for promotional pieces. They're allowed to use it to promote themselves as a model. So it's just a trade-off a lot of times. A lot of models are willing to do that because they want to build a portfolio. They like getting new images in there as much as photographers do. So you can do a trade. If it's just solely for promotional use, that works really good a lot of times because then it doesn't cost anybody anything. If you want to do it as stock, then they're going to want a piece of that also. So a lot of that depends on how much, if they're a really well-known model, they're going to ask for a lot more. If they're an up-and-coming model, they won't want much. Um, with this particular shot, I basically just said, hey, I want to do this as a promo. If it turns out great and I want to use it as stock, would you be, willing to do that? And she said, yeah, just let me know, when you come to what you want to do, just let me know and we'll work out a price. Well, she worked through an agency, so the agency is the one that actually sets the prices for that stuff. So she gets a percentage of what the agency charges. So I put this all together, used it as a promo, and this particular shot I didn't really think would work that great as a stock image, but a lot of the stuff that we did earlier in the day was a little bit more generic and not as posed and more lifestyle oriented that would work really great as stock. So I then called her up, said that I did have some shots there that I wanted to do, wanted to make sure it was okay with her, showed her the image, make sure that she was fine with all the images, and then called the agency, showed the agency the images. Me and the agency talked back and forth about a price, came up with an agreement on a price for it, and then just sent a check into the agency. They took a percentage for them, gave the rest to her, had her sign a model release, sent it to me, and then I took the images with the model release and sent them into the stock agency. So that's how it worked for this particular job here. Now, dealing with this one as a commercial shoot, Boy, I mean, that's opening up a whole barrel of worms there. Let's say the client approaches me, let's say they want to have this exact shot. They show me a comp, say this is what we want to do. Um, Usage, a lot of times is an issue if they just want to have it for, a small particular usage that's going to run in a local magazine 1 month. The price for that is going to be way, way different than if they're going to use it as a national ad campaign for this bicycle company and run it for a year and have it unlimited and run all over the world and be on billboards and TV advertisements and everything else. You're looking at a massively different number there. So usage, what the client wants to use it for, is a huge part of what you're going to price something out at. That price really ends up just being what would be called your creative fee for doing it. Um, it won't really change the production costs at all. For this particular shot, if this was a commercial job, uh, once you looked at the comps, you found out what the usage was, you would then make a bid for the job. And then if you were awarded the job, first thing to do, and this would all be, everything that I'm going to talk about would be part of the bid. You'd need to have a location scout, go out, find the location where this would be at. They might not specifically want it at Crown Point. They might want it just at a scenic vista. So you could, in your estimate, have 3, 4, 5 days of a location scout out, shooting different locations all around. Crown Point might be one, Mount Hood might be another. They could go to the coast and shoot a road along the coast range, show the client a big variety of locations that could work. So that's a pretty substantial cost right there. Then the permitting of the location, that fee, you're going to have a producer step in. So you've got your producer fees. She's going to permit the area. If it's at a state park, there's permit fees for that. If you're closing down a road, it's usually not as much of a permit for that, but you do then need to have traffic control. Sometimes you need to have police officers, so there's all costs involved with that. Um, then casting for the model. If the client doesn't have a model already specified, they just have, they want a, female, athletic, 20 years old. You need to do casting for that, so there's a cost with the casting. And once the model's picked, then there's obviously the model fee that goes through the agency. Then there's the film crew. When this shot would take place, if there's any gear rental that needs to be rented, that's part of the cost. Probably on this job, if it was a commercial job, probably have 2 to 3 photo assistants, hair and makeup, a clothing stylist. The producer would be there. It just kind of all starts adding up and up and up. And when you bid the job, you really need to make sure that you know what all's involved in the production, because if you miss any of that and you don't put it in the estimate, then when it comes time to shoot day, all of a sudden you realize, oh, I didn't, put in, $400 for hair and makeup. Then a lot of times you'll have to eat that cost because it wasn't in there in the first place and you chose to bring the person along. So you really want to go through when you do an estimate for these type of jobs that you know what all's involved and you make sure you get everything kind of lined out beforehand, because the numbers that pop up are usually pretty big numbers and you don't want to have to pay for that yourself.
That just opens up so many questions. I'm not. I mean, there's obviously there are questions that are coming in asking if you can attach specific dollar figures. It's not something I typically advocate discussing because, for me, when I was starting out as a commercial photographer and I was shooting, I started out, locally, and I'd shoot restaurants and I'd shoot small little places, businesses that needed new images. The pricing was radically different than after my 10th job, say, and I started feeling like I was cutting my teeth, and my name was getting around, and it was giving me more more of a leg to stand on to charge more, but I always charged, and so with that, obviously you have a long-standing I guess, experience in this industry. So what you charge might not be commensurate to what someone who's starting up would charge. But I think there are a lot of people who are just trying to figure out how to get their foot in the door. And do you know what I mean? Like, do you kind of?
Yeah. Yeah. Where to start at? Yeah, I mean, and it is such a huge, broad question, and the numbers vary. I mean, drastically. I mean, when you look at some of the stuff in, some of the magazines. I mean, some of the really big, world famous, fashion photographers and stuff. You're looking at 50, $60,000 day rates for people like that or more. And somebody that could be, a fantastic photographer working at a local studio might be making $500 a day, and shooting, really great images. So each photographer has to set, well, it used to be, it's a little bit more now considered a creative fee. It used to be day rates, but now it's considered more of a, I think more people, when they estimate jobs, put it as a creative fee. So they find out, instead of just having a blank number, I charge $2,000 a day. That's my creative fee. Or let's say that's my fee. That was my day rate. That now is kind of changed to where people can move that around a little bit. If it's a simple studio shot that maybe doesn't really take much creativity, and they're doing 5 shots in a studio that day that are all really bland, you might have a little bit different creative fee for that compared to, say, a shot like this that is a lot more intricate, has a lot more post production, has a lot more kind of visual content to it. You might have a much higher creative fee for this shot. So it's still you working 10, 12 hours that day, but the vision behind it is a lot more about you and your creativity for a shot like this than if it is in a studio shooting a simple product on a white background and just lighting it with a light box or something. You might charge a much smaller fee for that. And then back to what I mentioned before, the usage fee needs to come in there also. When you set your creative fee for the day or for the job, that fee also has to be considered with what is it going to be used for. If a client is just going to, say it's a local client and they make whatever it might be, that whatever their product might be, they just want to have it as a promotional piece for them, and they want to send out mailers, around their community. The fee that you're going to charge for that may be, your lower creative fee. Say it's $500 for the shot or $1,000 or whatever you decide. You take that same deal and it's a client, it's, shooting a Budweiser bottle that the photo is going to show during the Super Bowl. The image may end up looking the same as if it would have been a lesser thing, but since they're using it for that, it's being seen by tens of millions of people, not a couple hundred people. They're making a huge more profit off of that. Then it's only makes sense that you should make a much more profitable amount by doing the shoot for them. So those are things, the actual creative fee you need to set for yourself. ASMP, there's a lot of different things out there that give you information on kind of what's a standard rate for magazine photography, what's a standard rate, for some other things. But you really have to look at those and just ask yourself, what is it worth to the client, and what is it worth to me? What is my time worth? Um, so yeah, I mean the numbers, like I said, it's literally it's everywhere from 500 a day to 50,000 a day. It's a huge gap, and obviously the 50,000 a day is somebody that is world renowned, that's working with huge celebrities, that has nothing but a stellar record of fantastic images, of dealing with really famous people, and delivering fantastic work. You're never going to get to that point without having done a fantastic job for years and years and years beforehand.
This is the exact reason why I love this webinar series. Is it gives the opportunity to discuss these topics. I find them personally to be very, very compelling, and some great. I feel torn. I want you to continue on, but there are some really great questions here that I think are worth talking about really quickly. Maybe you can go through them, answer them quickly. But I like Glenn's question for this photo that you have here, the bicyclist. Um, the question was, what might a photographer expect to get from a shot like this? But really, I think the latter part of his question is where the real substantial meat is when does it become more trouble than it's worth? So when will a shot like this become more trouble than it's worth? You said it's a promo shot. It's not for for a client, and so it's really your time, your money, your effort. So at what point is there a kind of like a event horizon where you're like, you know what, I'm abandoning this?
Um, well, gosh, I guess, I mean, as long as everything's going smooth, we all enjoy photography. We all love it. So, you're out there, you're creating something. The only thing I guess it would, would kind of be a deterring factor for me, if the weather was really bad, the model wasn't being cooperative, if she just simply didn't want to be there, didn't like the images that were coming out, if she was just having a really hard time with it, if bad weather came in, the location didn't look good, maybe that there's a bunch of dirt and leaves along this nice concrete area here, if I would have had to sweep all that off. The big wind came up, which I was very concerned about in the gorge, which you were just up here the other day and knew how windy it can get up there. I've got a light right there with an umbrella on it. If my light kept blowing over and I was worried that my light might break, then I'd have the cost of that. But really, for this type of shot, I didn't really have really any expenses. It was just my time, and I just, again, why I got into photography. I just love being out there. If the shot wouldn't have quite came together the way that I wanted it to, um, and I didn't know if it would really be a good promotional piece for myself, I might have been a little bummed. But this, with this in particular, we were trading off the work, so I knew there really wouldn't be any money out of my pocket for the model. It was a beautiful day, and if I wasn't up there shooting this, I would have been out shooting something else. So to get me to pack it in would have had to been some pretty bad environmental issues probably to get that to happen, since there was no monetary thing. If we would have been, if I would have been paying her, and there was a set fee for 2 hours, and all of a sudden it was stretching into 2.5 and 3 hours, and I would have been paying more and more and more. At that point, have I got what's good enough? Is the light going to get way better? Do I have a better idea that is worth another $100 to me for her for the hour to do? Those would have been issues if I had been paying, but since it was a trade, I didn't have those concerns.
Thank you. Feel free to carry on.
Um, oh, you want me to go ahead and switch to another setup here, or was there another particular question about this particular setup?
No, you're good to go.
Okay, okay. I'll move on to more of a specific commercial job. Looks like we might be running a little late on time here, so I'll kind of go through these two here a little bit. This was a commercial shoot I did for Tillamook Cheese. It's actually from like a lot of the work that I do wasn't a client direct thing. It was through a production company that handles work for Tillamook Cheese. They hired me because of my location work of working with a lot of vehicles, and since this wasn't a typical Tillamook shoot, it had to do with these promotional buses that they have. And this job came up. They had done photography the year before. The photography was fantastic. They showed me when they first called me about the job. I came in, met with the producer and the art director, and they showed me the shots that they had from the year before, and they were great. I mean, they were fantastic. They had perfect weather. They had a great location. They had really soft, overcast light. It was shot at the perfect time of fall with nice fall colors in the background. They shot outside on location in a beautiful park that had perfect cut grass. You couldn't ask for more. I was looking at the brochures and I'm like, whoever the photographer was did a fantastic job. What do you guys need to redo them for? Well, they had they had changed the font. Was all they'd done. Go back to this here. Um, they had changed the font on the lettering on these buses, and so they needed to reshoot everything for the new year because they had new font on the type. And I was like, wow, okay, I'm definitely more than happy to do it for you, but the issue with this was in January that they approached me, and they wanted me to redo the shots that were done in on a beautiful fall day and just perfect conditions, and they wanted to do it at the same location. So the first thing I did was to drive to the location that they'd shot at before and take a couple scout photos. And this is the location at the park. As you can see in the background, all these trees don't have any leaves on them. And the shots that they had had before, they were all beautiful, golden, yellow, and just really pretty. The grass wasn't in too bad a shape, but as you can see right in here, where the mowers had been out, these are just from little mowers that were driving out on the grass. And the grass, it had been raining for weeks and weeks and weeks on end last year in January. There's leaves all over the ground, and a lot of these shots were down shots. And I met with the park ranger, and first thing right off, he's like, there's no way you can pull buses out into that grass here in the wintertime. You'll just destroy the grass. And not only did I have the buses to deal with, but dealing with angles where you're up high like this, I need to rent a scissor lift to get up high. Well, scissor lifts are unbelievably heavy, and they would have just destroyed the grass there. So first thing right off, got back with the client, before I ever did an estimate or did anything, I'm like, we've got huge issues here. I'm like, for one, the park won't even let us shoot there because of the grass conditions. We could try to find another location, but we're going to be having similar issues with it. So we had to talk about what are alternatives to shoot these products to get um, the new fonts that they had on the buses. So what we decided to do was go into a local studio and shoot everything inside and shoot it all on a simple background that then could be stripped out and then put in their brochure wherever they want. They could put it in on a white background, a gray background. They could strip it into old grass shots that they had had from the first shoot where it was just the backgrounds. Um, so that's what we decided to do. We didn't really have much choice. It'd been pouring down rain for weeks on end. There was no change in sight. They needed to get this stuff done by a certain day. So this is pretty much what we had to do. So I, again, went through, uh, did an estimate for them, what the studio rental would cost, within the studio rental, our individual lights, different, a lot of different product other than than my trailer that I bring out with all my stuff. And so I did the whole estimate, everything got agreed on, set up the shoot day. They took care of all the buses, which can be an issue too with a commercial shoot. I might have had to have, if they had told me that I needed to take care of car prep and transportation, that would have been a huge other issue. And that was something that I knew from my background to know to ask is, are you guys going to be taking care of this? Are you going to have transport bring the vehicles out? Are you going to have people there to move the vehicles? Are you going to have people there to prep the vehicles? So once I found out what it was that they were going to do with the production, I was able to make an estimate on what my costs were going to be, and then came to an agreement, and then got everything rolling. So inside of this big studio, it's one of the biggest, well, it's probably the biggest studio soundstage here in town. I went in there beforehand, met with the studio manager. They had a huge Shamira light box, let them know where I wanted to set up at, gave them a equipment list of things that I would need. These are big silks. It's a flat. I think this one's like a 12 by 12, and this one on this side, you can just kind of see right here is a 10 by 20, I think. Um, and so once I gave him the equipment list and everything, he was going to have all that ready, all set up. So when we came in, we could just roll the vehicles in and start shooting right away. So what we ended up doing was just shooting a ton. I think I did just over 100 shots that day of all these buses. We did individual shots of each bus. We did group shots of the buses. We did, gosh, what did we do? We did 6 different angles from 3 different height levels on all the buses. Just a huge amount of stuff throughout the day. Reason I pulled this one up first was kind of wanted to show just a simple little studio thing right away. Once this was set up, this was the most one of the most problematic shots that we had. You're looking head on at these things, and these are all have these round chrome pieces that reflect everything. And when you're in a studio, these are huge issues. So you can see this one here, the incident angle from the camera here is reflecting off this flat, so it gives this nice badge right here, whereas all these ones are messed up. So what we did after this shot is I had an assistant go in there with a foam core, so the white side facing in, and we just positioned this each way around the buses so that with the camera on tripod, we were then able to go in and strip all these shots together and show a nice badge. And you can see here, all these badges are much cleaner looking all the way around. And then these buses, after this was done, the buses all got stripped out and then were going to be used however they chose fit. So these are just a couple other things that we did. Another thing in the estimate was, are they going to strip the stuff out, or are we going to do it? Have a digital tech that does it. So I needed to find out how much of a budgetary concern that was. And so these are just a couple different options that we gave them if we did it, if it was going to be stripped out with just white, stripped out on gray with a gradiated background, uh, different things, sampling stations that were shot in the studio and then stripped out. A lot of different things there. At the end of this job, everything got done. About 2 weeks later, they called me up and said, "Hey, the weather's supposed to be nice. Let's go out and shoot the shot outside." So I just added this one in here really quick. Park was still drenched, couldn't do it or anything. With all the locations I'd kind of been to over the years, I let them know that I had a place that I thought would work. Went out there, scouted it. This happened to be on a nice knoll area where the water drained off really good. And then we just went out for one day and just set these shots up and ended up kind of reshooting some of the stuff we did in the studio, but went ahead and did it outside. So one of the big things with getting this particular shot is knowing how much area that you would need, nice flat ground, make sure you had access to be able to get the vehicles in. We had the property owner go out there and mow the grass. It's a real last minute thing, so park really wouldn't work because it's usually at least 2 weeks to permit at a park or something. Whereas with this being private property, we just gave a check to the property owner for the location fee, and we were able to get out there within a day or two. I can move on to the next one here if you want, Brian. Are there any questions on this one?
Good. You're good to go.
Good to go. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This next deal here, this was for Warren Off-Road Products, since I do a lot of kind of location work, motorsports oriented stuff. Did this Jeep application brochure for them a few years ago. This one was a little bit different than a lot of commercial jobs. The art director had been doing this stuff for years and knew all the locations and everything. So he secured the location here. They paid all the location fees. This was just me and an assistant out for the day. They took care of all the vehicles, the drivers, everything. And we went up Eastern Oregon and shot their Jeep application brochures. And on this particular job, it was great. They didn't have any comps set up. They didn't have any things that I had to shoot directly to. He had a list of products and he had things that he needed to see, but for the most part, he left everything up to me. He just said, you know, I'll give you the list of what the products I need to see, and then you go from there. So crops, angles, lighting, backgrounds, all that stuff he left up to me. And then he actually produced the brochure after the photos were out, which is the opposite of what most of the stuff is. Usually you have comps that you have to shoot to that are done before, and then you shoot directly to that. Whereas with this client, he just had you shoot everything, and then he pieced the brochure together from there, which was a great way to shoot. I loved it. After did this job, was booked out for a long time. Had a couple things happen where I wasn't in town, and wanted to do some work for him again, and had an idea for a shot that I wanted to do. So I went out to a local riding area one day, had an idea in my head. So I just kind of went out and kind of did like what you'd call a tech scout. Went around the area, kind of shooting some shots to see what would fit best for the idea that I had. And it was all geared towards this same client. It was all geared towards Warren. It was a wench idea, something to kind of get me back in the mix with him. So after I had scouted these shots, kind of came up with everything. I got a model together, got a vehicle together, and waited for a nice day where it was misty and rainy. Good time of year when the foliage wasn't wintertime, where everything's all knocked down from the snow and all the rain. Went out and shot these shots that would work twofold. They would be good promotional pieces for myself. They'd be good stock images, but they were also images that I knew could be bought directly by them. So in a way, it was kind of a stock shot, but I already had a buyer for it. So went out for the day, shot a couple different shots with, obviously with the wenches there, with the whole idea being adventure and being out and obviously having an ATV with a winch on it over a regular four-wheel drive truck. Wanted to show that, and this shot here was the main reason for being out there. That was my vision for the day, was how can I show the client something new, maybe that they haven't seen before, that would really, really be different to them. And when you're dealing with particular products, or they're usually always shot the same way, and just like with this cover for their brochure, you're looking at the winch, you're seeing the cable. It's all kind of the similar thing. It's on 500 other brochures that they've done in the past. Whereas I wanted to show more, where can you go with having this product, not looking at the product, but looking at what you can go out and do. And so I had this idea of crawling underneath the ATV and just seeing the hook and looking out into the forest, and showing the adventure aspect of it instead of just the product. So this was the first shot we did that day. We went out. I had already found an area that I could crawl up underneath. We pulled up there. The water was kind of draining down, and got pretty muddy. Just crawled underneath there, shot this shot first, and then went out and shot these other shots as just kind of extra bonuses, things that uh, I felt that they could still buy, or if they didn't, they were very, still somewhat generic, a lot of open area for type, that other places could buy them. So uh, this shoot ended up just being a lot of fun. They ended up buying this one, exclusive rights. Made a pretty good profit on this. They just wanted the image solely for themselves. They ran it for their advertising for a couple years. Ended up working out great all the way around. I can go on to the final one here, Brian, if there's no other questions.
There are questions about.
Yeah.
There were a few questions about the gear you use typically. Like, what gear do you use? Do you typically shoot wider lenses for this shot? And yeah, mostly about the gear.
The gear, yeah. I've been shooting Canon, gosh, forever, back in the film days. Have had Sinar 4x5s, Hasselblad 2 1/4s, Canon film cameras. Obviously with the advent of digital, it's kind of trimmed down. Never really use a 4x5 anymore. They've got perspective control lenses for the Hasselblads. Use the phase one backs for on the Hasselblads quite a bit for the bigger jobs, if I know they're going to be billboards or double page spreads and brochures. But for the most part, the 35 gear for action stuff and for smaller printed stuff, the Canons have been what I've been using for a long time. I mean, ever since digital started up, and again, the 35 gear before it was even digital. This particular one, I believe, was a 17 to 35 zoom lens on a 5D. It's a few years ago, so it was before the 5D Mark II came out, so I'm pretty sure this is off the original 5D. I just had, actually, on this particular job, since we were kind of out in the elements, and again, this wasn't a big produced shot, this was just me and my friend to kind of out riding for the day to shoot this particular thing. All I really had was just I think I had the 580 flash off camera on a little light stand, just to fill in the really dark areas on him in some of the shots. This one doesn't have any light at all. For this particular shot, there wasn't much lighting involved at all. This is just a little Canon speed light, popping in some fill light right here. But for the most part, this particular shot wasn't really lit much. But when I do go out, if it was a little bit more of a commercial job, or if it was something that I was really doing a lot of different lighting setups and stuff, I like to use the Lumidyne strobe system. Reason being, they pull apart. You can piece the batteries together to get more power. You can take the batteries apart, and you can put them into a backpack. So in one of my camera bags, I can fit in three little of the heads. I can put in a bunch of different batteries. They all pull apart. They can fit in there, and so you can take them around. Get way in the back country. If that's where the location is. They work really great for being able to transport around, whereas a lot of the systems they're much bigger, bulkier. Yes, they have more power, but if you don't need more power, then you're toting around all this stuff and having a much more tough time with it. Whereas with the Lumidynes, they work a lot better for kind of far out locations. And one other thing with them, a lot of people are really going with some of the strobes, Chromes, and different ones that have a really fast flash duration to stop the action. And that works good for some sporting things, but when you're dealing with motorsports, especially, or bicycles, or any other thing that has where you're not just doing action, but what you're shooting action of has a moving part. Um, the slower flash duration I feel works better because you don't freeze the action and then have the blur right after it. That can be, I personally don't like the look for it. I think it looks a little bit hokey. And using the Lumidyne systems, the flash duration is a little bit longer. When the strobe goes off, the duration is a little bit longer, so you don't get the frozen spokes with the blur, the motion blur right after it. You actually get a little bit of that blur since the duration is longer, so you can still fill the light of the subject. You can still freeze the bike, the model with a pan or however it is you're shooting it, but you don't get that hokey look of the frozen spokes or the frozen wheels. So I like that system for a couple different reasons. Then obviously, if it's a bigger production, I mean, I've rented everything from pro photo stuff, Speedotron lights, Broncolor, White Lightning, used a lot of different things over the years. So I kind of just whatever lighting gear is going to work best for that particular job is what I end up going with. Whether I already have it or if I don't, pick the one that's going to work best and then rent it.